The Mamaroneck Board of Education has adopted a budget for the next school year. The spending plan will cost the average homeowner an extra $111. Since the tax levy exceeds the allowable cap, voters must approve the plan by a supermajority of 60% or more. The vote is on May 15th. Mamaroneck School Superintendent Dr. Robert Chaps visited the local live to talk with Mike Witsch.
Welcome to the local live and to LMC TV.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
I just want to say right off the bat that I am a retired MHS teacher, full disclosure, and that this segment is not a call-in. So I'll ask the questions. Hopefully you'll stay tuned and listen to the answers. We're so happy that you're with us to answer some questions. And also the viewers should know that LMC TV records all of the district meetings and has them archived and available online. And also, you have your full budget book, all 97 pages of it online for those who want the details.
Absolutely. I think we, as a school system, certainly the board, committed to transparency, to ensuring that our community members are well informed about our budget so that they can make a good decision about our budget vote and the election for Board of Trustees.
That vote is on May 15th. It's about 3 weeks away from now. So what do you want the community to know when they go to the polls?
I think it's important to know two things. One, our interest is always to maintain and invest in the quality of our public school systems. We know as a community that the quality of our schools, reputation of that experience is critically important to the broader community. That being said, the storyline or the tagline for this year's budget continues to be enrollment growth, that we have, as a community, experienced what I would say consistent enrollment growth for the last 3 years.
And that's not typical of most districts.
No, it's atypical. As a matter of fact, you know, as a school system in the last 7 years, we've increased our enrollment by 13%. That's equivalent to about 650 additional students, which I remind community members it's like adding or building one additional elementary school, which is incredible. Most area schools in Westchester County are seeing a steady decline in student population. So we must be doing something right. That being said, it is something that we're concerned about and have been because of the pressure it puts on our operating budgets. And so we have been kind of, in many ways, trying to tell the enrollment story relative to our requests for additional staffing in this budget.
This budget it shows some efficiencies. You've saved some money, but you've also increased expenditures about 2.8% over this year, the proposed budget that is, and the tax levy 3.9%. It does exceed the state cap, so it's going to require a supermajority or 60% of the voters. And that happened as well last year.
Yes, I think, you know, it's interesting, Mike. One of the things I've talked about to various community members and organizations is the arbitrary nature of the living under the tax levy limit law. That in our case, for several years, our ability to grow the levy based on the formula, the inner workings of the formula, has been somewhat limited. Matter of fact, so much so that up until last year, we were able to stay under the cap, well below, and have minimal increases to our annual operating budget. I think, as I suggested last year, with the enrollment pressures and growth and limitations of the cap, and then again this year, we felt it was critically important to, again, to invest in staffing that is primarily the cost drivers for going for an override for a second year. What's a little bit concerning in all of this is that enrollment growth is really not factored into the formula, both for the tax levy growth as well as state aid. And so I think it's important, we've said this on many occasions in our meetings, that there are a number of districts in Westchester that have declining enrollment, but that are growing their levy well beyond the 3.87 that we are, in the range of 4 to 5%. But because of the way the cap works, the formula, are still under the allowable cap limit, which makes no sense to us. And so we're trying to really focus and educate the community members to say, what's in this budget? How do we kind of look at efficiencies, as you mentioned, and find savings at the same time invest wisely across the board?
So because we're going over the cap, there's no reason for alarm. It doesn't mean that our spending is sort of out of normal and out of control, anything like that.
Right. What's interesting is that I would challenge any citizens to say over a 7-year period compared to any other time in the history, what has our budget to budget growth been, our tax levy growth been, because it's been, I would say, minimal relative to other factors. But more importantly, it's interesting, our per pupil expenditures have retained flat or in some cases decreased relative to certainly the area, which says we are being much more efficient in how we use taxpayer money to support the quality of our schools. But it's also a function of the percentage of growth of our annual enrollment versus how much the budget is growing.
Yeah. One of the items that you identified as an ongoing trend in one of the publications I read in general and special education is more support and programs dealing with students who have emotional difficulties or psychological evaluations needed for some students. Is that something across the state that you see?
I would say so, yes. I mean, it's interesting, we've noticed that at all levels now that we are trying to meet the needs of students who present in various ways relative to, behavior, emotional, I would say, issues. And being able to develop programs that meet their needs as very young learners. But that is consistent in terms of what's happening in the state, or so I would say nationally as well. We've created a program in this current budget, for example, at the high school level, an innovative program that we're very proud of, to help students who have, for the most part, been struggling with school avoidance, emotional issues, anxiety, for many years, who now been attending school regularly. And so where normally we would be educating them outside the district or at home, they're coming to school every day.
At extra expense.
At extra expense, considerable extra expense. They are attending school regularly. They're getting the support for their, what I would say is day-to-day emotional challenges. They're doing great academic work, and they're building a strong community. So I think it's that point of innovation and efficiency and meeting the needs of a range of learners that really is important to us.
You point to a number of program goals in the 2018-19 budget. One of them is the science curriculum to conform to the New York State science learning standards?
Yes. So nationally, and I would say equally in New York State, there's been a transformation of thinking about science education. And so we have begun a multi-year effort to start to develop new units of study and in both the elementary, middle school, and high school to meet our obligation for these new curriculum standards. We are so fortunate to be situated in a community that has a number of learning environments outside the brick and mortar of our schools. So the Marine Science Center, the Sheldrake Environmental Center are places where students are really doing science in the real environment. This year alone, we'll have 188 classroom visits to Sheldrake, which is remarkable because it is taking those new standards and building units that allow students to focus on the real work of science.
So in addition to maintaining those alliances, those programs, you've also listed increasing enrollment in courses like music and world language and phys ed and art.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Mike. I think it's phenomenal that as a public school system, 85% of all 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders play an instrument, whether it's a string or band instrument. That's over 1,100 students in the elementary grades. We are very proud of the breadth of programs, but also the quality of experience for students. Our performing arts programs, our fine arts programs. We have over 12% of our high school students enrolled in computer science and robotics. In a few weeks, our underwater robotics team is going to travel back to Cape Cod, where they were named last year the Rookie Team of the Year to compete against MIT and other schools. And so the diversity of educational opportunity to learn is really what's built into this budget.
You also mentioned about resizing the faculty. I mean, you're adding almost 21 faculty positions. in this budget. And resizing, what does that mean?
I would actually, it's right sizing, and that is, so for several years, and I'll give you a few examples, we have seen unprecedented growth. So the Homix Middle School has gone in 2 years from 1,150 students to well over 1,300 students. And with our next year's fourth grade of 485 students, we anticipate in 2 years that it's going to grow well close to 1,400 students. Similarly, the high school was 1,450 students a few years ago. It's over 1,600 students that will continue to grow. So right-sizing or investing in those 20.9 position is really anticipating our staffing needs over the next several years that we have really ignored in some ways the limitations of the ability to grow the budget that we no longer can kind of work around. That is, at this point, what we said to the public is, if we don't add staff, our class sizes, our favorable class size will increase significantly. So how do we maintain favorable class sizes and expectations of our families and our community? And to do that, we are investing in additional staff. So we're adding a team at the middle school as an anticipation of the growth there. We are adding additional teaching positions at the high school to anticipate course selection and needs there. We've adding special ed teachers across the system because, as you've alluded to, we see a growing population of students and programs that are required to service students. And then finally, all the, I would say, electives and special programs, art, music, PE, health, that as you have more students and those are requirements, we need to add that staff as well. And then finally, the elementary piece. So the biggest challenge, Mike, is getting back to this idea of enrollment. It's system enrollment challenges, the pressures at the elementary, middle, and high school, not just one area of the district.
Okay, if this budget is not approved by 60%, do we go to last year's budget or a contingency budget? And make the answer quick because I'm getting a wrap-up sign here.
A wrap-up already. So yes, we have the opportunity, if this budget is defeated, for a second vote. We would decide whether to go under the cap, above the cap, present the same budget. If that second budget vote was defeated, it automatically goes to a contingency budget. The difference there is a contingency budget, we would have to eliminate $5 million, which is equivalent to 50 teachers' positions. To get under the cap, we would have to reduce the budget by $1.5 million, or about 20 teachers. So it's significant.
There's a lot at risk.
Absolutely.
The vote is on May 15th at 7 to 9 in your local elementary schools.
Yes.
And people will be voting on the budget. By the way, how do they register?
They can go to the district clerk and to pick up an application. I would say that you can go to our website for information on that. We also are certainly are mindful of absentee ballots, knowing that people have busy lives and want them to participate in the democratic process. We know how important that is.
Okay, and Dr. Robert Chaps, thank you for coming.
My pleasure. I'm just getting started.
You can come back anytime and talk more about the budget.
Thanks.
Stay tuned for more of the Local Live.